Alright guys, how you doing? It's Rabea. I hope you're all good. So if you've been watching my YouTube channel a little while, you may have seen some review videos I did on behalf of Friedman Amplification. If you've not heard of Friedman Amplification, do yourself a favour and look them up, because in my opinion, they make some of the best hard rock, high gain, just balls to the wall attitude laden amplifiers that you can get your hands on these days. Speaking of which, the Jakey Lee amp that I reviewed a little while ago, link in the description box, for me was one of the best Friedman amps that I've ever tried. Anyway, we've got a brand new amp. Well, I say brand new, it was announced at NAMM 2020, and if you're a fan of Friedman amps, you may know of the amplifier, the Dirty Shirley, which was an all tube 40 watt single channel head based on your kind of JTM 45 classic Marshall kind of sound. Well anyway, in NAMM 2020 they released the twin sister, which is Dirty Shirley's twin sister, who is supposed to be a little bit more filthy than Dirty Shirley. And basically it's a 2-channel amplifier, 40 watts again. We've got two 6L6, 5 12AX7s, tube rectifier amp, but now we've got 2 channels and a couple of extra features which make the twin sister way more tweakable and just an awesome amplifier. I was really lucky and fortunate to sit down and have a quick Skype call with the legendary Dave Friedman just to chat a little bit about the twin sister, and he could give me some pointers on nice settings and different things and his general approach to designing this amplifier, which was very cool. So we're going to talk a little bit about what this amplifier does. So as I said, it's based on your classic British tones, JTM 45 area kind of thing, but with that modern sheen, which basically means things like, you know, presence, master, an effects loop, the ability to be able to use the amp at lower volumes, because back in the day, those amplifiers, you just couldn't really do that without it sounding terrible. Whereas nowadays, more modern amplifiers allow that, which is great. So this is no exception. What are the new features? Well, as I said, it's 2 channels. Both channels are pretty much the same, but what's really nice is that both channels have a structure switch, which is something you may know from other Friedman amplifiers, essentially allowing you to change the gain structure of the amp. So you can have it feeling more like, say, a JCM 800 vibe, or like push it into a different position, get a bit more gain, different response, and then into the highest position, which is fully saturated, sort of the highest gain structure that you'll come across in the amplifier, which we'll get into a bit later. Both channels also have bright switches, and they're not just your standard sort of add a bit of brightness when you flick them in. These are designed more to give you a little bit more of a high mid bump, obviously your top end, a tiny bit more gain, that kind of thing. So maybe you could say it's a little bit influenced by, say, a tube screamer, because the idea being that it tightens up the low end, bumps the upper mids, gives you a bit more spark and a little bit more gain. It doesn't do what a tube screamer would classically do in front of an amp. It's not that drastic, but it's definitely that way inclined. You know, it's got a little bit tighter, a little bit more gain about it. So I love that. So the Dirty Shirley had a presence control, but something they've added to the twin sister is a deep control, which is really handy because depending on the style of guitar you play or the amount of gain you're using in the amp, you know, with gain, when you turn gain up in an amplifier, you start to know every amp reacts differently. But as gain is, you know, essentially a type of compression, your EQ, your preamp, so to speak, that's where all your character is. You know, the more gain you add, the more it compresses everything together, so things can get a bit flubby, a little bit untamed, which is where the deep control comes in. Because according to Dave yesterday when I was chatting, he said that the deep control around 5 or 6, I believe, is where the Dirty Shirley sits, because it doesn't have a deep control. So it's a nice girthy kind of sound. But what's really cool here is you can use the deep control to your advantage if you use a fatter humbucker kind of guitar, or you want to use more gain in this. Drop that out a bit and it tightens everything up. Other than that, we've got gain, we've got master, we've got a 3-band EQ, then you've got your presence and your deep control. Outside of that, like I said, 2 bright switches, 2 structure switches, effects loop on the back. It's plain and simple, which is what I like. So without further ado, we're going to check out the tones of the twin sister. I'm going to use my Strat, of course, the Les Paul. I've even got the PRS Paul's guitar because it's been a while. And we're running into the Universal Audio aux box. Okay, so we'll start as we mean to go on. We'll go low gain through to high gain, beginning with the Strat. And as I said before, the classic sort of amp design is that you could, you know, if you want a clean tone, you have to gun the master, drop the gain. And that's kind of how you get a clean tone. So that's what we're going to do here to demonstrate that. Now I've dialed in a super clean tone. It's dry at the minute. I'll throw in some reverb on aux. Bright switch not in, and the structure switch is in the middle, which is its lowest gain structure, closer to kind of like your JCM 800 kind of gain structure. So let's have a look. This is just the guitar, clean amp, no reverb. super clean. Let's throw in some reverb. So as you can hear, it's super clean because I'm running the master wide open. But what I do like is that clean tone is sublime. Probably the 6L6 tubes, giving it that extra bit of sparkle. It's got a kind of Fendery, sort of vibe to it. And I bet you anything without the reverb in there, it's definitely a funky kind of... But you get the idea. It's, yeah, sounds really good. Really good on the clean. I'm really into that. What I want to do now is quickly demonstrate the bright switch. So, this is what we've got. Let's throw it in. So you can hear how it's tightened up the low end. We've lost a little bit of that sort of deep, warm low. Take it back out. You get more of the low, but you lose that top end chime. So what you'd do then is you'd add more deep back in. So So with the bright switch in, as I said, it adds a little bit more of that upper mid bump and a tiny bit more gain, and you just notice it, like on neck pickup when I dig in. So take it out. Throw it back in. You should just notice a tiny bit more. Like, I'm talking a really small amount. It's much more, it gives you a little bit more sort of open sort of top end, which I like. Okay, next up we're going to just try a bit more gain. So at the minute this is our tone. Which is really nice, it's super clean. But I'm going to drop the master to 12 o'clock roughly. And I'm going to boost the gain to, let's say, about 10 o'clock, 10 or 11 o'clock. Okay, everything else is at 12. Yeah, everything else is at 12. This is what it sounds like. So it's not much more gainy, but you can hear there's a spark there. Now if I throw the bright switch in, let's see what happens. Should add a little bit more. There's that hair. So like a little bit more, especially with the bright switch in. So I'm going to take it out, put it at 12 o'clock now. So this is the gain at 12 now. Oh yeah. So we're starting to get a bit more of a bark, as you can hear now. So if you throw the bright switch on top of that, see what happens. Yeah, it starts to get sparkly. So I'll drop off a bit of presence, boost the depth in the mids. So, yeah, we're starting to get into the realms of gain now. So that's good. Next, I'm going to drop off the bright switch, boosting the gain to sort of 3/4. Oh, that sounds good. found the part of the amp that I'm really digging now. Like I was loving the clean tones, but as soon as you start giving it some gain, starts to sit in that area for me where I'm really enjoying myself. So this is a great opportunity now to show you what the bright switch does, again with more gain. So here we go. So let's throw the bright switch in now. So you can hear it starting to shrill up a tiny bit in the upper mids. So what I would do is maybe back down the treble, boost the depth. How about now? It's a great sounding amplifier, super just open sounding. I really like that. So now you've heard what the bright switch does. I think next thing we'll do is demonstrate the structure switch. So I'm going to put the gain back to halfway. Everything's sort of halfway. Okay, so this is kind of a clean, tiny bit of hair on it, but so the structure switch works essentially in the middle. That's the lowest gain structure. Down position is your next stage up, and then an up position is the highest. So we'll do it in order. So this is the first one. Here comes the second one. And the third one. Here we go. So the amp's not meant to be like high gain as such. It's definitely not designed to be like super high gain, but you can definitely go there. Again, this is a Strat, so it's a vintage output guitar. You know, you put something more modern in, and it's gonna go. Even a Les Paul, which we will get onto in a moment. But now that we've got all the gain, listen to this. Yes. So there's tons of gain. I mean, that's the highest gain structure with the gain nearly gunned. But check it out. Sounds fantastic. In that's with a Strat. And as I said before, there are two channels here, both the same. So the idea is that you use the foot switch and you set up these two channels to be your preferred sort of cleaner, push clean kind of sound. And then a continuation of that is channel 2, make it more gainy. And the nice thing is, because both channels are kind of the same, you're simulating all the way from a clean all the way through to a high gain with the same amp channel, if that makes sense. You know, rather than having to turn around and gun something up like you would have done back in the day or use a load of pedals. With this, you can just use the amp. So that's really nice. So what I want to do real quick is take something like a Les Paul, which is not as bright, of course, it's humbuckers. Dial back a little bit of the gain, but just give you an example of what the bright switch will do. Because at the minute, the tone was set up for the Strat, and this is what we've got. Sounds great, but it's, you know, a little bit thick. So what I might want to do here is essentially just tighten it up a bit. So I'm just going to flick the bright switch in. Check it out. Suddenly way tighter. Take it back out again. It just lost a little bit of that pizzazz. But when you put it when you put it back in, it opens up a bit with that upper mid thing, and of course the low end's tighter, so yeah, like I was saying, the bright switch can be used to just give a bit more articulation with something like a Strat. If you just want to push it over into that bitey territory, and then use the deep control to fill in the low end gap. Or if you're using something like a Les Paul, something with even vintage output humbuckers or more modern stuff, generally it's just thicker, more frequencies being delivered, you know, more surface area being picked up. So that's why you would use the bright switch in an amp like this to tighten things up nicely. At this point, it's probably worth showing you how you would use this amplifier more functionally, in a sense like a gig or like, you know, whatever, as a 2-channel amplifier. So I've got my Les Paul, and I'm going to dial in I've dialed in like a clean tone, so I've pushed the master back up, put the gain structure back to the middle, which is the lowest, using the bright switch in actually because it's a Les Paul, but this is the kind of sound we're getting currently. It's lovely, really nice clean tone. So using the foot switch, of course, I can switch over to channel 2, which is the same channel, but I've dialed in a different kind of vibe. So I've got the structure switch all the way up, so that's highest. We'll have the bright switch in as well. Gain is pretty high, master is sort of high-ish. Yeah, as you can see. So let's check it out. So this is our clean. So to me, that is sounding absolutely killer. It's that classic thing. I don't know what it is. When I plug a Les Paul into a Friedman, it does that thing that I really love about the Friedman amps. It's just that hard rock. Really give it some. Like, it sounds better the harder you play, which is what I like about the Friedman amps. Particularly when I was doing those licks where I'm kind of... like, because I'm digging in, that's where you get that. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense maybe to some of you guys, but like something in the pick attack when you give it some, and it's so rewarding to play. I think that's what I'm trying to say. It's just really rewarding, the feel of the amplifier. So yeah, all about that. And this Les Paul just sounds absolutely sick. So yeah, really chuffed. So they're demonstrating how you can use this amplifier in context, essentially, having a clean and then a push clean, or a clean and a crunch, or a crunch and a high gain. It really depends what you like. I'm really loving the clean of this amplifier, to say the least. It just sounds fantastic. The amp sounds fantastic, but we knew that anyway because it's Friedman. Okay, so now I've got the Paul's guitar. I wanted to try and get just the kind of tones I like to find from the amp. So we're starting with like a pushed clean ambient thing. So I've got gain structure in second position, bright switch in, gain super low, but it's giving me a really nice... sounding really good. I'm going to add a little bit more reverb. And I'm going to take the bright switch out. I really like that sound. There's something about the bridge split down sound on this thing. It just sounds beautiful. Yeah, well into that. Well then, there is the twin sister from Friedman amps. I am well impressed once again. I'm not surprised, because to be honest, every time I've used a Friedman amp now, I just get well carried away, especially with the Les Paul and Strat and stuff like that. It just sounds sublime. So the twin sister, what do I think? I think it's absolutely awesome. I think that it's way more versatile than I thought it was going to be. Knowing what it's kind of based on, I figured it wouldn't be able to get into the really dirty higher gain stuff. And with no pedals whatsoever, plugging in the PRS or the Les Paul, it sounded pretty ferocious. So imagine putting like a tube screamer or a boost in front of that, you would be able to get some pretty edgy high gain tones. So I would say this amplifier is super versatile. Having two identical channels with the same switching capabilities, I think that's really nice. It allows you to fully explore the whole sound of the amplifier and then split it out into two channels that you like the best. And I think that's a really cool approach to an amplifier like this, because it's sort of vintage modern, if that makes sense, you know, not the Marshall series, of course, but in the sense that, you know, it's kind of inspired by super vintage British amps, and then they've put that sort of modern coating over it, making it really, really usable as a modern amplifier. But anyway, I think it's great. Let me know what you think of the sound of this amplifier in the comment section below. Of course, I'll link this and the Dirty Shirley together into the description. But as always, thank you for watching this video. Thank you to Dave Friedman for his time and expertise on this amplifier. And of course, Stefan for sending it over. Thank you all for watching. Like, subscribe and share, and I'll see you all very soon.